Every year, millions of consumers use airlines to convey them to their destinations. Flight is the best value and most convenient means of long-distance transport in the world. Passengers book their flights in the belief that the industry cares about the customer, spending vast sums on research and technology to make their services safe. Statistically, they're assured, flying is safer than crossing the road. But year in, year out, there are incidents that challenge this accepted wisdom, and all too often the glossy corporate images are replaced with those of terrible destruction. Safety standards throughout the world differ massively. The best nations and airlines are very safe, but there are regions in the world where standards are significantly lower. Aircraft from some of these areas are being hired by reputable airlines and tour operators during the busy holiday season. Worryingly, they're under no legal obligation to disclose to the tourist where in the world their aircraft come from. Air accidents are meticulously investigated and documented. With so many lives and such huge profits at stake, every last detail is minutely examined and correlated. In most disasters, there's a chain of factors that combine to cause the tragedy. The most common factor is aircrew error. The European-developed Airbus A320, the world's first fly-by-wire airliner, was launched with a fanfare of optimism. At Mulhouse Airport in June 1989, Air France's first fully operational A320 took off on its maiden flight. First, it had to make a fly-past for the world's press. Initially, the onboard fly-by-wire computer was blamed for the disaster, which claimed 3 lives. But investigators who recovered the black box flight recorders discovered that the computer was not turned on at the time. The pilot had failed to judge his height and position correctly, and despite frantically applying full throttle, the aircraft couldn't regain altitude. The pilot of this chipmunk stunt plane misjudged the arc of his dive during a display in Auckland. Halfway through an intricate display at the 1993 military tattoo at Fairford, a minute miscalculation by these 2 Russian pilots resulted in a spectacular example of pilot error. The pilots had 15 seconds to eject safely and avoid certain death.
I got it. In the car, yeah, okay.
The second most common factor in air accidents is officially described as controlled flight into terrain, which effectively means crashing into obstacles that the crew did not realize were there. Inevitably, this almost always involves an element of crew error. Most modern airliners are equipped with flight management systems which navigate the aircraft between strategically positioned beacons along the flight path. FMS is particularly useful during long-distance night flights. However, a manual change of course or altitude during landing approach, for example, not registered by the FMS, can result in the system obediently realigning the aircraft towards the next beacon, regardless of obstacles like mountain ranges. Snow, ice and fog conspired to cause this airliner to skid off the end of the runway. Flat light and glare from the snow were factors in this accident. Weather is frequently listed as a cause of accidents, in that the weather was bad at the time, and the accident probably wouldn't have happened had the weather been good. Loss of control of an aircraft due to mechanical failure, like this jammed rear helicopter rotor, is one of the greatest tests a pilot can face. As investigators picked through the debris of United Airlines Flight 232 at Sioux City Airport in July 1989, it was difficult to believe that anyone could have survived. The DC-10 had suffered total hydraulic failure, which meant that the pilot had no control of the wing flaps that slow and guide the plane. It hit the runway at 200 miles an hour. Yet amazingly, some passengers walked from the wreckage unharmed. More lived than died, a miracle largely thanks to the skill of the pilot. A missing engine casing caused the failure, but the pilot stayed remarkably calm as he brought the stricken aircraft in.
I have serious doubts about making the airport. Have you got someplace near there that we might be able to ditch? And let's get control of this airplane. We're going to put it down wherever it happens to be. 360 at 11, you're cleared to land on any runway. You want to be particular, make it a runway.
This Swedish Jas Gripen fighter, losing control over Stockholm, was designed to be Europe's premier strike aircraft. It narrowly missed the crowd gathered to watch its launch. As the test pilot, Lars Raderström, ejected, the high-tech aircraft turned into nothing more than an expensive bomb. Raderström had crashed into the prototype Gripen 4 years earlier. Engine failure, as in this Turkish Airbus, which plunged 20,000 feet over central Paris, is the next most common accident cause. Engine fire is inextricably linked to engine failure, but often is more cataclysmic, as ruptured fuel lines can spread flames to the airframe with devastating speed. It was the cause of the world's worst air disaster in Tenerife in 1977, in which 583 people died. Passengers watched in horror as the engine of this Boeing 747 caught fire on takeoff. The pilot shut down the engine and jettisoned the fuel, a safety precaution that carried the risk of reignition. On landing, the passengers' gratitude was self-evident.
Just as we rotated and formed around to confront the thrusters stall on the door engine, that was probably due to the significant crosswind.
In an aging world fleet, the chances of structural failure will inevitably continue to rise as time passes. Experts said that it was 50-1 against the pilot managing to land this Boeing 737 after the roof blew off on approach to Hawaii in 1988. The stewardess was sucked out, but luckily all the passengers were wearing seatbelts at the time of the structural failure in preparation for landing, and despite casualties, none lost their lives. Once again, it was the skill of the pilot that prevented a terrifying ordeal from becoming a catastrophe, and survivors were quick to thank him. Airliners' airframes are like balloons, expanding and contracting every time they take off and land. The stresses they're put under are huge. This jumbo's cargo door ripped free just after takeoff. Investigators discovered an 8-inch hole in the roof of this TriStar. The International Civil Aviation Authority publishes an annual safety review that records the numbers and causes of accidents worldwide over the previous 12 months. The disturbing findings and recommendations from that document reveal an industry that knows precisely why disasters happen, where in the world they are most likely to occur, and how many lives are expected to be lost. An industry insider described the 1995 findings as depressing and disappointingly average. For passengers, they are nothing short of terrifying. In 1995, there were 56 fatal airline accidents worldwide, more than one a week. Surprisingly, given the generally held view that non-scheduled or charter flights are somehow less safe than scheduled, both categories suffered the same number of fatal disasters. In fact, Western Europe uses more charter flights than anywhere else in the world, nearly 50% of all departures, against a world figure of just 7%. And not one European charter suffered a fatal accident last year. (1,213 people lost their lives in airline accidents in 1995, more than in Bosnia-Herzegovina or the Middle East. With aircrew error featuring in 65% of all fatal accidents, it's easy to lay the blame at the pilot and cabin crew's feet. But if the industry's training programs are supposed to equip air crews with the skills necessary to respond to all eventualities, surely they're falling short of targets. Perhaps the industry should be spending more time and resources on long-term training. In addition to the main causes of fatal accidents, operations errors, which included one plane being filled with the wrong type of fuel, unsatisfactory maintenance, and systems fires were factors in a further 14% of accidents. Hangar mistakes are often not listed as causes until late in very lengthy investigations, concluded after the safety review. Also, low-budget airlines with poorer standards may allow crews to fly with maintenance defects that others would ground aircraft for. So any resultant accidents could be recorded as aircrew error. These figures don't add up to 100%, because each cause is usually part of a chain of events, and many accident reports list more than one cause. Systems failure figures highly in the list of key accident causes. The pilot of this Boeing 737 knew that he had to bring the plane in with one set of wheels folded uselessly beneath him. At the last minute, he aborted. 4 attempts later, bringing the plane in within feet of the perimeter fence, he finally touched down. All the passengers escaped, extremely shaken but unhurt. The difference in safety standards between the best and the worst regions of the world is common knowledge in the air industry. According to its data, the region with the consistently worst safety record in the world is Africa, which had 9 fatal disasters in 1995, followed closely by Latin America and the Caribbean, which had 13 fatal crashes between them. Next come Asia, China, the Indian subcontinent, Eastern Europe, and the CIS former Soviet states, which are notably worse than they were as the USSR, although the CIS Aviation Authority grounded 400 dangerous operators last year in a cleanup campaign. The safest regions are Western Europe, North America, the Middle East, and Australasia, which boasts the safest airline in the world, Qantas, which has never had an accident. The disparity between the least and the most safe is massive. You are 16 times more likely to die on a domestic African flight than on an American one. With worrying statistics like these, it's more important than ever that the traveler makes an informed choice when booking flights. But under current legislation, this choice is being denied them. The airlines check on you, you should be able to check on the airlines. Most holidaymakers would assume that the airline their tour operator books them on was British, or at least from the destination country. But this is not always the case. A flag of convenience culture is emerging in the air industry. Increasingly, package tour operators and airlines are wet leasing foreign-registered aircraft to supplement their fleets during the holiday season. By law, they are not obliged to tell tourists where their aircraft are from. This absurd lack of protection is unique. Car dealers have to divulge service and maintenance logs. Public buildings have to display safety certificates. Surely, when you place the lives of your loved ones in the hands of an airline, you should have the same level of information available to you. The implications of not knowing could be grave indeed. The military has always been at the forefront of cutting-edge aviation technology. Western experts said that this Russian Sukhoi performed maneuvers that were aerodynamically impossible. But despite the huge defense budgets supporting military fleets, they're no more exempt from the principal causes of accidents than their civil counterparts.
Down goes forward.
There goes.
Yep. Andy's got it.
He's got the cable and he's just going off the runway now.
And the undercarriage has collapsed.
Yeah.
They're still inside. Bloody hell, I'd have been out and running by now.
Canopy's open.
Yeah.
Okay, now.
We're just orbit.
Wave off power. Raise your gear. Raise your gear. Power. Eject, eject! Who's playing guard?
In 1991, the crash of this F-22 stealth fighter prototype caused grave concern in the Pentagon, where its multi-billion-dollar development fund was authorized. It's now in service, as is the Jazz Gripen, which was almost scrapped after this prototype also crashed. With such a high price in human and material terms, it's no wonder that the military place great stock in exhaustive research and testing, a practice both envied and utilized by the civilian industry. This test shows what happens when aviation fuel is released into a stream of air and ignited. It forms a fine mist, which burns incredibly easily and fiercely. Fire like this is the most common cause of death in survivable air crashes. In 1984, 2 fully fueled World War II planes were test crashed. The second aircraft's fuel contained a coagulant fuel additive designed to turn to gel when agitated, which would dramatically reduce the spread of fire. This persuaded authorities to conduct a full-scale test by crashing a remote-controlled Boeing 720 whose fuel tanks contained the fuel additive. It would cost $11 million. Aviation authorities also took the opportunity to place on board 64 test dummies, some wired to monitoring equipment, to investigate the effects of crashing on humans. The test would dictate whether the industry would commit itself to spending billions worldwide making the additive mandatory. Such a commitment required conclusive test results, so it was with great expectations that the Boeing took off from Edwards Air Force Base in California. Not the desired non-combustible result. Everything, including the dummies, was burnt to a crisp. The industry has been conducting research into the safest seating positions for years. Most injuries are caused by the head and lower legs hitting the seat in front. As a result, the recommended brace position was changed. But rear-facing seats would reduce the risk of serious injury substantially. The Queen has had them for years, but airlines vetoed them, as they did with external plane cameras, which would have saved lives in many cases, as would this Kevlar tent for the cargo hold of airliners, which prevents fire spreading. Runway overshoots occur frequently. 5 people died in this US Air Boeing 737 at New York's airport. All airports are required to have a 1,000-meter skirt to accommodate them, but that is often not enough. This porous concrete bed was developed to slow aircraft down. But it would cost billions to install in every airport. Air shows are a marketplace for the industry to present its wares. They also attract the public by the thousands, all eager to experience the thrills of pilots pushing aircraft to their aerodynamic limits. Organizers of such events have tried to ensure public safety whilst accommodating the industry demands created in this highly competitive arena. But with increasingly intricate aerial displays, accidents have become commonplace. This pilot ejected and the plane crashed onto the empty airfield. But at this display in Japan, the airfield was much smaller. The jet struck a house, killing 11 people. The lesson wasn't learnt. 5 years later, at a display at Ramstein in Germany, an Italian stunt team collided in the middle of a packed airfield. The maneuver was one of the most ill-judged and dangerous ever attempted, with a single jet passing through 9 others over a crowd. The result was an appalling tragedy.
Oh mein Gott, ich kan nog koud lucht aan, dus moet je snel te
The authorities finally took action and team displays were banned. But a year later, at the Paris Air Show, a MiG-29A Fulcrum fighter performing a routine lost engine power and slid into a dive. The pilot ejected just feet from the ground, but was conscious and able to speak. Even that was not enough. Year after year, there are accidents that all have a chilling similarity. This crash into Lake Ontario happened in 1991. 4 years before 1995's tragic Nimrod accident in almost precisely the same spot. At this air show at Mildenhall, the depressingly familiar scenario unfolded. But the show's emergency services were criticized for taking 6 minutes to cross the runway and attend to the accident. Appeasing an outraged world is not the same as imposing stringent restrictions on what pilots attempt at air shows. Until that happens, it will continue to be fate that dictates whether pilots walk home after their displays. The air transport industry is huge, and it's constantly expanding. In the last 10 years, the world commercial fleet has grown by 29%. Over 7,000 new airliners have taken to the skies, and departures have increased at such a staggering rate that the 25,000 aircraft in the world fleet now make over 15 million flights a year, with an average of 150 passengers a flight. Payloads are measured in billions of tons. But shockingly, by the industry's own standards, if safety does not improve, accidents will continue to increase in direct proportion to this expansion. Growing industry, growing risk. Which means the annual roll call of fatalities and causes will continue unabated. An aging section of the world fleet will find its way into the less well-off and less safe regions of the world, where they'll be refitted, repainted, and relaunched, with an increasing chance of being wet leased back into the same countries that sold them off. Air crews will continue to take the brunt of public disaffection, but have some of the most highly trained, skilled, and committed pilots in the world. The only winner will be the industry itself, as it continues to generate incalculable profits. And against this complex background, the real casualties will be the same.